Welcome to Airway Breathing Conversation, a podcast presented by the anesthesiology residents at the University of Saskatchewan, created to provide individuals of all levels of medical knowledge with anesthesiology-related healthcare information. On this episode, we speak with neurosurgery resident Dr. Nicole Pendleton and anesthesiology resident doctors Angie Hodgson and Sebastien Turcotte about doing call the right way, including ways to maximize your mental and physical well-being before, during, and after your shift. Now, whether you are an anesthesiologist, resident, medical student, or member of the general public, come take a break with our host, Anesthesia PGY3 Alex Pellerin, and a multitude of brilliant and insightful guests as we demystify the incredible specialty that is anesthesiology, one episode at a time.
Okay, so today we have a very cool episode with many residents from different disciplines, hopefully coming to chat with us about their pre-call, post-call rituals. We are very blessed in anesthesia. We get pre-call days, but our co-residents in other disciplines are not as blessed without pre-call days. But I thought I would ask Nicole Pendleton, Dr. Pendleton, to come and chat with us about her pre-call, post-call ritual, because Nicole is a third-year neurosurgery resident, and you have two small children.
Yeah.
I have no children. So sometimes when I think my life is hard in residency, I think about you. And then I'm like, Nicole's slaying. She's killing it in residency. And she has two small kids and is an awesome mom. So it reminds me to reframe my thinking around how hard my own life is. But yeah, thank you so much for coming, Nicole. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah. And tell us what you do for your pre-call, post-call rituals for survival.
Okay. So yeah, pre-call is a new concept to me that I don't know much about, because for our pre-call period of time, we're on our just general service. So we come in the hospital about 6:15, do rounds, and then we're in the ORs all day. We hand over to whoever is on call at about 5 p.m. in neurosurgery. And then that person is alone on call with the staff at that point. Mm-hmm. So pre-call ritual doesn't really exist. But for post-call ritual, you're right, it does get a little bit tricky having kids at home, because usually when I'm post-call, they're also at home too. One of the main things that I do, which is something I've started in first year, and I've been really grateful to have throughout my, all of my residencies so far, is that after I am on my way home, is the first thing I do when I get home usually is I have this book that a notebook that I keep in, and I actually write down one or two things that I learned that call shift. And it's been really cool to see how I've progressed throughout my residency training with that. So I write down those things just to try and remember that, call can be really hard. It can be very challenging, but it's really critical to your learning, I think, in most medical specialties to be on call.
Yes, absolutely. That's such a good idea. It's almost like a kind of like a medical gratitude journal. That's fantastic.
I was looking back at it when I heard about this talk, and some of the things that I was writing, like how to urgently arrange an MRI, was one of the things I learned in my first few months of residency, and it was just really interesting. So
yeah. And then now what kinds of things are you writing in your journal?
Now it's more complex things. So how to deal with an acutely ill pituitary apoplexy patient, or and then I'll just write down the steps that I learned that day, or sometimes dealing with some of the difficult family situations, or difficult conversations that we're having, and things I've heard other specialists say. So sometimes when we're having group meetings with ICU physicians, I'll write down some of their really good advice to families and things like that, so I don't forget what they are.
Yeah, the phrasing of things is so important. So important in those difficult conversations.
Yeah. In medical school, they teach you a little bit about difficult conversations, but it's an art more than anything we do, I think. We say that a lot in medicine, but difficult conversations with families is definitely an art. Yeah.
Nice. And then what do you do after that?
So after that, usually what I do is I have coffee on the way home. I drink a big coffee, usually an iced coffee, so I can kind of drink it all at once. And then I go to sleep for a little bit. But I find that the caffeine rush kind of wakes me up in a couple hours and I feel pretty good. So after that, I'm usually back up doing things with the kids if it's the weekend or waiting for them to come home from school and things like that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know if that's the most healthy way to deal with your post-call time, but
you know what? I do the same thing.
Helps. Yeah,
I do the same thing because I wasn't drinking coffee for a while, and then I was waking up with terrible headaches because I can admit that I'm heavily dependent on caffeine.
Yeah.
And it was actually one of our staff people that told me, actually, no, you like need to drink some coffee or some tea or whatever, anything with caffeine content in it, more than green tea, obviously, before you go to bed. So when you wake up, you're actually feeling good.
Yeah.
You can just drink more coffee when you wake up.
I stumbled onto that in trial and error, and it's really worked well. If I sleep too long during the day, I feel very headachy and thrown off my routine. So I usually get up, hang out with the kids, play, do our night routine, and then go to bed right after they go to bed. So I'm going to bed a little earlier than I usually would. But it helps me stay in that routine of waking up early and not getting thrown off from being on nights. I think when you're first starting residency, staying up all night is really difficult. And some people describe a day 2 feeling that they have of being really exhausted and feeling unwell on day 2 after a all-night call shift. So I think getting into a routine post-call can help stave off that second day when you're back at work.
Yes.
Post-call day.
The post-call. Yes, I agree with you. I do think the post is really hard sometimes when you're just, it's really hard just switching back and forth all the time to days and nights. And even sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm so tired, or like, why I can't bring myself to do anything after work or go do stuff. And then it's usually my husband that reminds me, oh, this week you've switched back and forth from days to nights twice. That's actually really hard on your body.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think the whole medical community is becoming more aware of that, but we have progress. There's progress to be made for sure.
There's progress to be made. Yes, for sure. And then do you have any tips on is there anything you do on call to feel better or to give yourself a small break when you are having a really long or hard night?
I think always, I learned this from an emergency physician. If you feel like you're extra stressed out or you're feeling really overwhelmed, he said, stop, take 5 minutes because you're probably either thirsty, hungry, or have to go to the bathroom and pee. So, usually I will check in if I'm feeling there's so many tasks and so many patients I need to see, and kind of get that feeling of being overwhelmed, that to stop and just realize, I haven't drinking water in 4 hours or 5 hours. So just take those 5 minutes, don't think about anything, and take a bit of a break for yourself. And usually once you address those basic things, you can kind of get back and continue on for another few hours at least, or till the morning.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Is there any other things that you do? Do you do anything to prepare for call? Do you make sure that you have food prepared for yourself, or do you like to eat specific things?
In regards to that, I do pack a lunch, but I don't usually pack a supper. We do home call, so we often are able to get out of the hospital at least once a night, and usually you can get out for supper at some point. So I always try to go home for supper. Try not to do fast food, which is kind of what you feel like eating at that time, but I feel really causes a crash a couple hours later.
Yeah, for sure.
So I try and get home at night to eat again, and then I've always really strived when I'm not busy at the hospital to get home. I know some people feel more comfortable sleeping in the call room. But because we have the option of doing home call, I always find I have a way better sleep in my bed at home.
Yes.
Even if I have to come back in an hour, at least I was there. And sometimes just like changing your clothes and grabbing some water or a smoothie can help you feel better that next hour when you're coming back to the hospital.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like there's nothing like changing your socks
Exactly.
on call.
That's I was going to say socks, but that's what I really meant. But yeah.
That is such a huge thing. I like put on a new pair of socks at 2 a.m. I'm like, I'm a brand new woman.
Yeah.
I could do anything.
I can go back right now and see another 4 consults.
Yeah. I crush them out, no problem with these new socks. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. We really appreciate it because I think the type of call that you do is so different from the type of call that we do. You each have much longer hours than we have to do usually. And although when we're on RUH call, we stay in the hospital, like it's only 16 hours, which is, I think, a lot more doable than a full like 28 hours of staying here if it's a really busy night.
Yeah, you have to take a marathon strategy to call shifts, especially earlier on when you're not a little bit less efficient. So it's taking you longer to do things and you're there more. So you just make a plan, stick with it, and do what you can to survive those call shifts.
Yeah, it's all about survival. 100%. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're on call today, so you got to get back to it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. Awesome. Okay, so next we have Dr. Angie Hodgson here. She's one of the PGY3s in our anesthesia program. I would argue one of the healthiest people I know. And that's why I asked you to come on this podcast to talk about your pre-call and post-call rituals. And obviously there's been a transition from in R1, we do only St. Paul's call, which is 24-hour call. And then in second year, we start RUH call, which is a 16-hour call shift where we do pre-call, post-call days. So Angie, what is your pre-call ritual? Or do you have a pre-call ritual?
So I think it's kind of taken a while for me to figure out what a good ritual is. But kind of a bit of trial and error. I think what sort of is working best for me now is I try and prioritize getting some good sleep the night before. I'll try and sleep in as much as I can and wake up. Kind of depends on the day. Some days I'll try and schedule an appointment or something or get out of the house and do a workout. And then I try and prep a bit of food, make sure I have some healthy stuff to bring with me on call, or else we all know I'll be up in that OBS call room at 4 a.m. hammering chips. So
Absolutely.
Gotta make sure I have something healthy to last me through the night. And then most days, I'll try and get another nap in the afternoon, usually around like 1, try and have like half hour to an hour nap.
So you stay awake after call then? Like when the call shift is done, you try to stay awake until you have your afternoon nap?
No, sorry. I thought we were talking pre-call.
Sorry. I thought, okay, sounds good. Still pre-call. Okay, have a nap in the afternoon.
Still pre-call.
Perfect. Yeah,
a quick nap in the afternoon before I go in. Wake up, have a coffee, grab all my food, and then head in. I think earlier on in R2, I thought, this is such a great day off. I can just get so much stuff done. So I'd try and kind of cram things in. I'd have a to-do list of a million things. And then I sort of realized I would be absolutely exhausted by the time I got to work. So I've really tried to kind of cut back on the things I do during the day and kind of get more rest and kind of self-care before going in. So I'm ready to go.
Nice. And is there any types of foods that are your like favorite things to bring on call or things that are like your go-tos for prep?
I find it easy to kind of make a bunch of, I like to prep a bunch of like cooked vegetables, like roast some broccoli, sweet potato, cauliflower, and usually add a grain, some greens, and then kind of whip up some sort of dressing. I find that it kind of keeps me full, and I've got, kind of good nutrition to kind of keep me through the night. And then I try and have something a little more kind of that will satisfy my cravings in the middle of the night, like I don't know, some sort of like some popcorn or like some sweet bar or something, so that I kind of go for that in the middle of the night instead of the chips and fruit snacks.
Yes, which are so good. Yes, I also very much struggle with that, like middle of the night. You kind of just want like something really salty or something really sweet. I'm sure because I like cortisol levels are probably like off the charts at that point.
Yeah, you're running on cortisol at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we are very lucky to have our call room on obstetrics that is specifically for anesthesia residents is like stocked always with great snacks. Some are like there's healthier options for sure. There's usually like some cheese or some fruit and things like that. But there's a lot of bubbly, which is very, I think, necessary for life for anesthesia residents on call.
Totally.
And then lots of like good salty sweet snacks.
Bubbly is life.
Bubbly is life. Yeah, honestly, Bubbly should. We ask them all the time on Instagram if they'll sponsor us, but we might as well ask them on the podcast too.
Official shout out.
Official shout out to Bubbly, keeping anesthesia residents fueled. Nice. And then, do you have any things that you specifically try to do when you're on call to just survive the call shift?
I don't really have anything specific that I do. I've tried to play around with figuring out when is a good time to nap, what time in the night I decide to stay up or go to sleep. And I find it's just too unpredictable. So I kind of just, some nights if I have some time off, I'm wide awake and I'll just do some reading or something. Other nights I feel exhausted, so I'll lay down for a nap. It kind of just depends on how things are going.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Nice. And then when your call shift is done, what do you do post-call as soon as you leave the hospital?
So usually I'll go home, typically have some sort of a meal. In the past, I've found that this is sort of my biggest time of nutritional weakness is that breakfast post-call. And I mean, once in a while, I'll order something really tasty and good. Other times I'll kind of just make something with whatever I have around at home or if there's any leftovers in the fridge from the night before. So I'll have a quick meal, usually have a nice hot shower, get all the hospital grime off me.
Yep.
And crawl into bed. I'm usually not a big Netflix in bed person, but post-call, I love to put a show on, and I usually last about 5 minutes into the show before I'm fast asleep.
Yep.
I typically sleep between, kind of depends on what sort of a night I had, but I'd say on average for me, I'm a pretty big sleeper post-call, like maybe between 4 and 6 hours. I try and, the latest I usually let myself sleep is probably 3:34. So I'll usually set an alarm, sometimes earlier than that. But if I didn't get any sleep, I'll probably let myself sleep till 3:34. Then I'll get up, have a coffee, and then I try and usually get a workout in. And then sort of for the rest of the night, just kind of do whatever I need to do to get ready for the next day. I've kind of played around with figuring out how much sleep I need and how well I sleep the next night. And I found that if I kind of cut myself off, wake myself up by 3:34 and get a workout in, I usually am able to fall asleep again the next night. Yeah.
And then how about the like post call blues? Because that's what I find is almost the hardest is like the first day back to a regular schedule after call. Is there like anything you do to try to make that better?
You know, that's not something I've ever, figured out. So it's always a tough day.
It's always a long day.
If you have any solutions to that,
I'm not sure if I do.
I've tried to sort of incorporate a little bit of meditation most days, and I find that sort of helps with kind of setting a good headspace for the day. Just like a quick 5 to 10 minute breathing exercise before I go into work. But as we know, you don't always get that every day. But I find that is something that seems to help.
And do you do that when you are on the way to work or before you leave the house?
Usually before I leave the house. Yeah.
Nice. Amazing. And then is there anything you do? I can't remember if you're a coffee drinker, aren't you? Yeah. Is there anything that you do? Like, do you have coffee before you go to bed post-call? Or do you wait and like when you first wake up have coffee? Like, how do you adjust your caffeine needs?
Yeah. So what I normally do is I'll have no caffeine immediately post-call and I'll go to sleep right away. And then usually as soon as I wake up, I'll let myself have 1 cup. I try and keep it pretty minimal just because it's later in the day. And if I have too much, I know I won't be able to sleep well that night. So kind of whenever I wake up from my post-call nap, I will have my coffee and then kind of cut myself off for the rest of the day.
Perfect. And your partner's also in medicine. He's a really fantastic internal medicine resident. Do you guys like do things for each other to make post-call or like pre-call easier? Like, does he try to do dinner on the days that you're like on call or like help with food prep on both sides or anything like that?
Yeah. So kind of our system right now is because sort of both of our day-to-day fluctuate so much, we kind of just go off who is busier at that time. And it's kind of just, it seems to work well. The person that is less busy will typically do more of the kind of groceries, meal prep. And we typically, most of our meal prep will just do for both of us. Because we typically eat the same thing and are happy to eat whatever. So yeah, if I kind of have a more busy schedule and he has less, then he definitely will do meal prep and kind of vice versa.
Nice. And are you guys vegetarian?
We're not. No. We're not really strict anything. I would say at home, we basically eat vegetarian at home. Yeah. We don't really buy much meat. We just sort of decided like that's kind of the way we'll eat at home, but out at social things or like family gatherings and stuff, we're happy to eat meat. It's just kind of our way to reduce our meat consumption, and we've just kind of gotten the habit of that and seems to work well.
Nice. Well, that sounds really good. What you said that you made, it just reminds me of like fancy power bowls. Like when I like look on the internet at like good things that I should be eating, I'm like, yeah, these like bowls with all these like good things in them, and then some sort of like good dressing or sauce to like make it all super tasty and go together. And I know when I creep on your lunches at the hospital, I'm like, oh, Angie's always eating really good stuff. I should ask her what she's making. So I feel like I'm usually at a loss for what to make or what to eat, but
the trick is in the sauces. You can make some really good, just blend up a bunch of stuff and make good sauces. Like you can add nuts, you can add tahini or avocados and just blend it all up, and you can add fresh herbs and
and that's like the trick.
Yeah. And then you just kind of dump it on everything and it sort of just all absorbs the flavors and melds together.
Yeah, and it's delicious. Perfect. Okay, I will do that in the future. I did actually just recently buy some tahini.
Nice.
Because I was looking at making more of these types of bowls, and I felt like every dressing recipe I looked at, it was like 2 tablespoons of tahini. And I was like, I don't have any tahini like in my house. So I got to get some,
really
I guess.
Good.
Yeah. The one that I did make was very, very good.
Nice.
Sweet. Any other tips? You kind of mentioned that you usually like to get in a workout. Is there anything specific that you usually try to do on your post-call day? Are you like weightlifting? Are you like running outside? Or
I kind of do a bit of everything. I find if I'm post-call, it's often a good opportunity to get outside for a workout if it's nice out. So I try and do those days an outdoor run if it's decent out, or if it's not nice out, sometimes I'll try and force myself as well. Especially because otherwise I might not really go outside that day, and then I'll just sort of be holed inside the rest of the day. So I try to kind of do an outdoor workout that day, but not always. Some days I'll just do kind of a workout in my basement. I've got a bit of a setup with kind of a few weights and a bike down there. So
nice.
Whatever I'm feeling that day.
Nice. Awesome. That sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
Any other tips that we haven't gone over yet or that I missed?
I think the biggest thing for me that I've learned is sort of just kind of being easy on yourself on those pre and post call days. I think it's easy to get in this mindset of always being productive and having your to-do list of things you got to get done, and then tiring yourself out. So I think for me, it's just kind of letting myself chill and relax and take some time for myself both those days and allow myself to recover.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. True recovery. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I also used to do what you did, where I would like book a bunch of things and like have a to-do list, and then I would die all night because I'm like, oh, I've been up since like 9, and now it's like hour 14, and you're like still doing epidurals on obstetrics, and then by the time the night's done, you're like, wow, I'm really dead, and you just want to like crawl home.
And then it takes 3 days to recover.
And then it takes 3 days to recover. Yes, that is correct. Exactly. Yeah.
Then you do it all again.
And then you do it all again because you're on call again. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's always a bit of a transition, like trying to get to it. And I think what you brought up is really good, where it's like different for everybody, and you just kind of have to like experiment and figure out like what is the best way for you, and what do you need on those days to feel like you're taking enough rest, and then like still being productive on the next day after the post call day, I think is really good.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's a tough balance. And some people need a lot of sleep. Some people need less. I feel like, unfortunately, I'm on the more spectrum, which isn't great for this career.
Well, it's probably good, right? All the important things happen when you sleep, like all the like protein synthesis and like the transfer of like information, memories, right? Yeah. So probably the people that don't get enough sleep, that's just not happening for them. But yeah, some people do seem to cope, like with very little sleep. I don't know who those people are, like how they do it, but they seem to do it.
It's crazy to me, but good for them.
Good for them. Exactly. Good for them. Everybody's different. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Angie, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Awesome. Okay, we are back again with Dr. Sebastien Turcotte, Seb, who has been on the podcast before. Thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I just finished a merge shift on your merge rotation, so we appreciate you joining us again. Tell us what so far in R1, what you've done so far is St. Paul's call, which is 24 hours.
Yep.
So there's no pre-call day. But is there anything that you do to get ready for call?
Yeah, for sure. I would say my call traditions basically are divided between like what do I do at home and what do I do sort of at the hospital. So I like to prepare a lot at home to get ready for call. Big one for me is food. So I've always packed because we do 24-hour call, I'll pack a lunch, pack supper, just to make sure that I have something ready to go. And then lots of extra snacks too, obviously, because I just feel like I just cannot function without lots of food. Yeah. My brain just shuts down after a while.
Yeah, totally.
So lots of snacks, get ready for that. If I can try and sleep lots the night before, I'll try to do that. But that always...
Like go to bed early.
Yeah, I go to bed early if I can. Or if, like, say I had a late night emerge shift or something, I'd try to have a nap beforehand or something like that. So well hydrated, well fueled, rested, try to just be ready so that, because there's lots that go on during call.
Mm-hmm.
And I find if you're just a little bit better prepared, then things go a little bit better on call too. And then my other preparations too are, I always get like my phone charger ready, make sure that I have that. I've got a portable phone charger that I can carry around with me when I'm on the wards if I can't go to my call room. And then make sure that like my computer is well charged and everything too, because I use it a lot on call too. So both my devices are charged, I'm charged, ready to go. I try to come a little bit early just to get the lay of the land. So when we do anesthesia call, oftentimes looking at the board to see what patients are there and just trying to prepare for that a little bit too, mentally get ready. So, because I find that if I show up a little bit late, then mentally it also takes like a little bit of time to get back into it too. So getting early and getting my mind set up that way too is important.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm at the hospital, I try to take those snack breaks that I've prepared, try to like take bathroom breaks when you can, obviously, because those things can always slip your mind and then you forget about it. But that's always really important. And then like low key, what I tell everybody is to hit up the ice cream vending machine at like 3 a.m.
Oh, that's a good one.
It. Yeah. So there's always those little Oreo sandwiches that I just love to eat sort of at 3 a.m. And those are the...
Like from the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much it. And then post-call, somebody gave me a really good tip, was to like have a coffee either the morning that you're finishing up and heading home, or have a coffee as soon as you get home, then go to bed.
Yes.
Because I get like horrible caffeine withdrawal headaches otherwise.
Yes.
If I wake, because I like to sleep on my post-call days. So I'll try to sleep until noon or 1 if I can, but then sometimes I wake up with a bad headache. So
yes,
it might have been you, Alex, actually.
Maybe it was you. I was going to say, maybe it's me. I don't know. And I stole this from Dr. Cowan, who told me to do this, because I think I was complaining to one of our staff people that I just get like these terrible headaches.
Yeah.
And he was like, you just got a pound of coffee on your way home or as soon as you get home, and then you go straight to sleep.
Yeah.
And then by the time the caffeine hits you, you're going to be waking up hopefully soon anyways, and then you avoid the headache.
Because you're so tired anywa's, the caffeine's not going to keep you awake.
No,
so,
it's not enough.
And then it helps with the withdrawal when you wake up so that you can be a little bit more functional.
Yes.
But yeah, I try to use post-call days as like an actual day off, because you work so hard the night before and it can be pretty stressful, and the weird sleep schedule can always get to you. So trying not to plan too many appointments or things like that post-call either, and just using it to recover, because then you have to go to work the next day usually. So
as an actual rest day.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just sort of I'm still early on in residency, so I'm still picking things up a little bit here and there. Sometimes if call is a little bit quiet, say it's a 24-hour weekend call at St. Paul's and I'm home at like 2 p.m. for a little bit of a break, love to take my dog for a walk down by the river or something like that, just to get some fresh air.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can feel really weird being in the hospital for like 24 hours at a time or whatever. So any chance that I get to get a little bit of fresh air is always really nice too.
Yes, outside time is very important. Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. If I ever do St. Paul's call on a weekend, often what I'll do is like lay out in the sun, even if it's only like 15 degrees and I'm like bundled, and then I just like lay on my deck in the sun, because you're just like, I need any vitamin D
absolutely.
at this point. Yeah,
because those windows don't offer enough in the OR.
Yeah.
Or if you're here at RUH, then you're in the basement.
Then you're in the basement. There's no windows.
Yeah, for sure. So like my plan right now, I'm about to finish my emerge shift. I'm going to go home and just take my dog to the dog park, I think, is always like...
perfect.
Before I start to think about work again, I just like to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, decompression.
A little mental break, and then go from there. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
What are your habits?
My habits. So when I do 24-hour St. Paul's call, I usually will pack 1 to 2 meals. It depends. I'm not a huge snacking person unless it's like bad snacks. But I try to at least to do one meal. And then we are so lucky in anesthesia. I feel like usually our staff person ends up buying us dinner, which is fantastic. And then if they don't buy us dinner, I always order the same thing, which is cold rolls. Because I find that I'm like,
awesome snack.
I'm eating healthy. There's like fresh vegetables in these things. They were just made. Some protein. And I'm obsessed with peanut sauce. So that's usually how I roll. And then, like we talked about, if we do get to go home on our 24-hour call, I do like to go outside. I also have a dog. Take my dog for a walk is a big thing. Or just like spend any time with my animal because they just get it.
Yeah.
They just like know that you just need to chill. You like pet the dog. The anxiety is gone.
Yep.
You just like see life through their eyes for a little bit. And then if you have to come back, you have to come back.
Yep.
And then usually the day after post-call, and this is what I do, especially after RUH call, is drink the coffee, just like you were saying. And if I've had a particularly hard night that I found was very stressful or very busy, before I even leave the parkade of the hospital, I order a good brunch.
Nice.
So that I can eat it at home in bed.
Yeah.
And that to me is like my little treat, like, oh, good job, Alex. You like survived that really hard call shift. And what I order very much, I don't do this all the time, just like for times that I think were really hard. But I either order like pancakes or waffles or like a breakfast poutine hollandaise situation, like something hearty. I'm a really big fan of like the, I think it's like tomato and avocado like hollandaise poutine thing from OEB. Because then I'm like, oh, look at me. I'm eating delicious. Some vegetables with my fried
the
duck
omega-3s
potatoes.
In the avocado.
Yeah, exactly. And then I usually eat that in bed. And I'm a very bad sleeper in general. A lot of that is probably because I have too much screen time before I go to bed. But I do like to put something on in the background to fall asleep to. Big fan of like rain sounds.
Nice.
Or I like particularly bad television, like something I've seen a million years ago that I don't care about, like One Tree Hill.
Yeah.
I don't even know when that show aired. Maybe it was like when I was still in high school. Actually, I think it was when I was still in high school. So turn something like that on and then I'll just pass right out.
Yeah.
And then I usually sleep till like 1 or 2. The first thing I do is get up and take my dog for a walk to get outside. And I always grab a coffee. Either make it at home or grab it on the way from Christie's Mayfair Bakery.
Oh, I love Christie's. Yeah.
I love Christie's. So like my go-to is like broccoli cheddar croissant latte.
Nice.
And then I like eat the croissant in the car while we're driving to the dog park or by the river and then drink the coffee while we're walking. It's like glorious. And then go home and usually try to prepare supper or try to go to a hot yoga class, depending on how motivated I am.
Yeah.
And then try to do as little as possible.
It's hard to want to work out post-call, but it actually makes like a huge difference. Even if it's just something light,
even if it's something light. I know, I agree. I agree. And I'm not really much of a gym you know why? Because I don't know what I'm doing at the gym. I go to the gym, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing with these weights or like what I should do. I'm not like a very active person at baseline, but I do like walking and I do like hot yoga. So and then I go to hot yoga and I lay down. That's the first thing you do is lay down. You're like, this is great. I love laying down.
Just spend 60 minutes doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I said, well, you could. They say at the beginning of the class, they're like, you just do whatever's right for your body. And I'm like, thank you. I will.
Yeah.
So that's usually my go-to. And then when I do RUH pre-call days, I usually try to stay up the night before. A little bit later because I'm a pretty early to bedtime type person. So if I stay up later, then I'll actually sleep in to try to adjust to that staying up all night. Yeah. Because when we do our RUH call, you don't get to go home. You have to stay in the hospital because you are on for all traumas and code blues. And although you can definitely get some sleep, you do have to go to obstetrics, and that's a pretty busy place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of, if you do get sleep, it's pretty disjointed.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So if I try to stay up later, try to sleep in as much as possible. And then we kind of talked earlier about with Angie, she was like, oh, I used to like have this to-do list, which is exactly what I did too. And I started pre-call days. I was like, oh, this is like an extra day to like go do appointments and like get groceries and get all this stuff done. This is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Because then by the time you start your call shift, you're so dead.
Because then it's like you've done a day of work.
You've done a day of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, already. And you're like, now I'm kind of tired. And it's like 8 p.m. and my night is just starting.
Yeah.
So I try not to do that anymore and only do things that are like essential that I have to do. But the one thing that is essential is always taking my dog for a walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I will try. I'm not a good napper during the day, but I will lay down for 1 hour.
Yeah.
And relax and then get up, have coffee. And then I always eat something before I go to our UH call, because the amount of times when you start call and then you might not be able to do something until like 2 a.m. is high.
Yep.
So if you don't eat right before you go.
Yeah. I find it's really important to eat something right before your call shift starts, because you may not get a chance during the call shift to actually eat something until later.
Until later. Yeah. Because, like when someone is, when a patient is really sick and you're doing a lot of things and the adrenaline is high, you just don't really think about it until it's over. And then you're like, wow, I really need to pee. I really need to eat something. I feel a little bit grumpy.
Yep, totally.
So those are, so I always try to eat before I leave.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then call survival is a whole thing in and of itself. I like your ice cream tip.
Yeah.
I think treating yourself at night is the key to success.
Calories don't count when you're on call is what I tell myself.
Calories don't count. That's a good one.
Yeah. So then, I justify like the ice cream sandwich or little snacks here and there, because I think, like you say, you're so busy and there's so much adrenaline going on with everything that if you're also like hungry or you have those glucagon headaches or whatever, that it becomes so much harder to focus. So
so much harder to focus. Yeah, I agree. And you'll soon experience the joys of being on RUH call and getting to go to the obstetrics call room and eating all the good snacks.
Oh yeah. I snuck in there during my obs block a couple of times.
Nice.
Just to steal some snacks. Yeah, I know. Yeah. No, they take really good care of us here, which is awesome too.
Yes.
And I find, like you mentioned, staff are always willing to buy you a meal or something too. So sometimes I'll save that supper that I brought for like a 1 a.m. meal again, just to get through the rest of the night. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're very lucky here. Thank goodness staff don't pack food.
Yeah.
Like, thank goodness that they just can't.
You can always count on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the best, because that's how you know that you're like, oh, and then they usually, I would say most staff people say, where do you want to order from? Like, oh, I get to choose
I know.
Too?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm happy to eat any free food, honestly.
Totally.
Yeah. Like I was on call on Friday night, actually with Dr. Cowan, who gave me the coffee tip, and we ordered a very nice dinner from Japa Bowl. Never eaten there before. It was great. Super delicious.
Yeah. Frankie's Subs was another place that I got introduced to, like
Frankie's
a Vietnamese sub. So
I do love Vietnamese subs.
It was really good. Yep.
Okay, nice. That's for next time. Yeah, I do. I love Vietnamese subs on call, actually, because like French bread with all the delicious things inside of it, can't go wrong when you're on call.
Oh.
Yeah, 100%. And then I think that's really the major stuff that I do. I wish that I didn't have such bad post call days. I haven't quite figured that out yet, how to make my day after being on call, switching back to days better. But something that I think I'm going to start, which I did in R1, was I used to get up really early in the mornings and go for a walk or go for a run.
Yeah.
And I think that did help like set the tone for the day, which I'm going to try to get back into.
That's a good plan. Actually, I've noticed I'm, again, a very intermittent person who like exercises. So like some weeks I'll work out a little bit more than others, but I find on the mornings that I can get up and even just go for a walk or like a light spin on the spin bike or something before work, I find I'm much more energized. And so given that you're already tired after that post-call day, just getting some of those extra endorphins maybe and wake up just a little bit more before work would be nice. And then I think, again, packing food for that post-call day too is that way you just get less things to worry about when you're going back to work, I think, because your post-call day can sometimes be very disorganized.
Yes. And it's just hard that first day switching back already. So that I think the more things you can prepare for yourself is probably just better. Yeah. And then any sort of meal prep. I feel like meal prep is really the key to success.
These aren't like novel ideas that we're coming up with.
No.
But sometimes in practice it can be difficult. But just reminding yourself that it is, just simple things can really add up and make a big difference. So
Yeah, and med students always ask me, I don't know if med students always ask you this too, like, oh, like how do you call? How do you do call? Because it's just such a crazy idea to be awake for long periods of time if you've never done that before in your life, or to switch back and forth from days to nights. And it's still hard regardless, I think.
Yeah.
Even if you are a pro at it, I think the fatigue that's involved with switching back and forth is very real.
Yeah.
And I still have to remind myself all the time, like when I feel like trash, that it's probably because I was on call 3 times that week and was switching back and forth. And it's not just because like something's wrong with my thyroid or whatever, because that's usually what I tell myself. I'm like, I should go get something checked out because I like feel so bad. And then I look at my schedule and I'm like, wait, no, it's probably just that. And like next week when I'm not on call that much, I'll just see if I feel as bad as I do right now. And the answer is usually no.
Yeah, like I've been on Emerge right now, which has been a great rotation, but I've had a lot of evening and night shifts. And I've been wondering why I can't get to bed before 1 a.m. anymore. And then I realized it's because I've been working until like 1 a.m. most nights, and then sleeping in. So like it throws off your schedule a little bit, but then like you say, just give yourself a little bit of a break too. That, the change in schedule can actually make a big difference too. And just try to reset, after the weekend or something.
And I did try when I was a nurse before, and I would like switch for the 12s. I would take some melatonin, but I kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like you have to take it so far in advance of when you're actually going to go to sleep. I never take it in time to actually make it worthwhile. But I wonder if anybody else does that. We'd have to ask them.
I've never tried it. Luckily, like once my head hits the pillow, I can usually fall asleep pretty quickly. But I know others might have more issues than that. But I wouldn't be the person to ask.
Yeah, it's us more anxious, internally anxious people, I think, is probably that have more problems going to sleep at night when we like rethink every social interaction we've had during the span of that day, and then are like, what did someone else think about that? And the answer is they don't care. But you just have to remind yourself of those types of things. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me again. Always happy to come back.
Yeah. Well, you can come back anytime. We probably need you. We need you to come back.
Looking forward to the Elkridge episode that we'll do.
Yes, that's right. We do have our anesthesia resident retreat coming up here in May, which hopefully we'll organize to do some podcasting while we're out there, and then show you guys what our wellness retreat looks like. Because Angie, who was here earlier, has spent a lot of time and effort planning this retreat, and I think it's going to be awesome this year.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Airway Breathing Conversation, a podcast hosted and presented by the anesthesiology residents at the University of Saskatchewan. Please note that while this podcast is run by healthcare professionals, it is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. We are very thankful to our guests for taking the time to share their wisdom with us this episode, and a very special thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us and our associated USask Anesthesia accounts on social media. You can find all our social media links on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/abc_podcast. You can also find the department's social media links on their Linktree page at linktr.ee/usask_anesthesia. We'll see you next episode, but until then, stay calm, take a breath, and always remember your ABCs.